How does one harmless coffee joke turn into a stack of papers that decide where you sleep and when you see your own child? What happens when a wife laughs about boundaries in front of everyone and her husband answers with silence, spreadsheets, and a public legal result instead of a fight? Can she still call him controlling when the only thing he uses is the law? My name is Ianthe Rowe, and if you ask my friends, they will tell you I am the fun one, the one who refuses to live like it is the 1950s just because I have a ring on my finger. They would also tell you my husband is quiet, serious, and a little strange about boundaries, and I used to let them say that without correcting them. I still think I was right, most of the time. I work in customer support in a big open office where everyone drinks coffee like it is oxygen. You talk with people all day, you listen to complaints, you smile into the phone until your cheeks hurt, and then you go to the small coffee shop around the corner and breathe. That is where I met Callum, the freelance designer who always sat by the window with his tablet and his messy hair and his easy smile. He became my after-work coffee friend before I even noticed it. The first time Noah asked about him, it was in our small kitchen when I came home late with that nice tired feeling after laughing too hard. He asked why I was late. I said I was having coffee with people from work. He asked, very calm, who exactly I was with. I said a few co-workers and a designer guy who sometimes joins us. He asked why I never mentioned that guy before. I said it was just coffee, not a wedding. To me, it felt like he was picking at something small, like he was trying to control the one part of my day that still felt like mine. Noah is not loud or angry. He does not slam doors or shout. He just gets this stillness around him like a lake when the wind stops. He said he did not like how often I stayed out with this man, that it made him uncomfortable, that it did not feel respectful to the marriage. I told him that if he trusted me, he would not care what cup I held or who sat across the table. I knew that line sounded clever, and part of me liked how smart it felt. After that, every coffee with Callum felt like a test I had to pass. If I stayed home, I was giving in to control. If I went out, I was proving that I was independent, that I did not need a permission slip from my own husband. So of course I went. Callum always asked about my day, always listened when I complained about rude customers and small-minded co-workers. He joked that I sounded like a main character. I said someone had to be. At work, I started turning our tension into a story. I told my friend Clara that Noah got jealous over coffee, that he did not like me talking to other men. I said he acted like any male friend was a threat. Clara rolled her eyes and said he sounded controlling and old-fashioned. I did not correct her. I left out how calm he was, how he never actually forbade me from going anywhere, how he only asked for respect. It was easier and more fun to act like I was fighting some huge injustice. I began to feel a small thrill when I saw Callum's name on my phone. He would send a message asking when my next break was, and I would feel wanted in a way that felt lighter than home. If Noah texted asking what time I would be back, I felt annoyed instead of cared for. I told myself it was because he was checking up on me, not checking on me. There is a difference, at least in my head. One evening I came home and Noah was at the kitchen table with his laptop open. He asked if I had fun. I said it was just coffee and a walk. He nodded and did not push. When he got up to get water, I glanced at his screen. There was a calendar open, and I saw a recurring event labelled meeting, personal with a location called Riverside, and a time set for 3:40 p.m. I laughed to myself and thought he probably booked therapy just to complain about me. Later that night, when I went to put a bill away in the desk, I saw a folder labelled Household. We always kept bills and small things there, but now it looked thicker, with a few new plastic sleeves tucked inside. When I slid the drawer open, I heard the little click of a lock releasing. Noah walked in right then and asked if I needed anything. I said I was just tidying up. He came over, closed the folder, and gently pushed the drawer shut again, like it was nothing. Maybe it was, but it did not look like nothing. Instead of asking about it, I went to our bedroom and opened my phone. I complained to Harper, my sister, about Noah being weird and secretive lately. I told her he was jealous of a simple coffee friend and now probably hiding things in drawers. She said that sounded like controlling husband behavior and told me not to let him box me in. I liked that version of the story better than the one where I might be doing something wrong. The next morning in the kitchen, I noticed he had set his mug on the counter far from mine, near the window instead of near the coffee machine. It was such a small thing, but it felt like a line drawn in the air. I joked that we were having a mug divorce. He just gave a small smile that did not reach his eyes. He asked if I was seeing Callum again after work. I said yes because there was no reason not to. He nodded and said he understood. I told myself his understanding meant I had won. When I picked up my phone to leave, the lock screen lit up with a new message from Callum that said he would buy the next coffee and that I deserved a break after dealing with my jealous husband stuff. The screen flashed just as Noah walked into the kitchen and went quiet mid-step, his eyes dropping to the phone, then to my face. The next morning at the office, I walked in with my best nothing is wrong face and set my bag down like I had not seen Noah's eyes land on my phone. Clara rolled her chair over and asked how jealous husband stuff was going. I said he was still acting weird about coffee, but that I was not changing my routine for anyone. She laughed and said men were fragile, and I let her say it because it felt good to be the reasonable one in someone's mouth. I told her the story about the kitchen, but I changed it. I said Noah had grilled me when really he just asked a few quiet questions. I said he had demanded that I stop seeing Callum when he had only said it made him uncomfortable. I watched her eyes widen, and I saw the exact moment she decided he was controlling. I did not correct her, and I did not mention the part where I liked the attention too much to even consider stopping. Later that day, we took our usual walk to the corner coffee shop. The barista already knew my order, and that small thing made me feel like this place belonged to me. Callum was there at his window table, and he waved when he saw us. Clara nudged me and said that he lit up when I walked in. I shrugged like it was nothing, but inside I enjoyed it. He asked how work was going. I said it was the same circus, different clowns. He asked if things at home were calmer. I said my husband was still stuck in his little rules. Callum shook his head and said, in his soft voice, that he did not understand why some men were scared of harmless coffee. I told him Noah's problem was that he had no life outside me, that he did not have friends or hobbies, just spreadsheets and routines. It was not completely true, but it felt true enough when I said it. Clara listened and gave me that look that said I was brave for not letting a man limit my contact with the world. When my break was almost over, I checked my phone and saw a message from Noah asking how my day was and what time I would be home. I showed it to Clara and rolled my eyes. She called it surveillance and told me to ignore it until later. I wrote back that I would probably stay out a bit, that I had things to finish. He replied with a simple, okay, and somehow that answer made me angrier than any long fight would have. That evening, when I went home, Noah was sitting at the dining table with his laptop open again. He asked if coffee had been nice. I said yes, like it was basic self-care. He nodded and looked back at the screen, and I felt shut out in a way I did not like. As I passed by, I glanced down and saw a spreadsheet open with lines and dates and letters in the first column. There were no titles, only cells with numbers and initials. I joked that he was always married to his data. He said he was just getting organized. He did not look embarrassed. If anything, he looked focused, which annoyed me because I could not tell what the focus was on. Much later after dinner, I was scrolling on my phone in the bedroom while he moved around in the guest room. I heard a low whirring sound from the hallway, that steady mechanical noise you recognize at once. The printer was going in the middle of the evening. I stepped out and saw a page slide out as he stood by the desk. He reached over, hit cancel, and the next page came out blank. He said the printer was acting up and that he was just trying to make it work. I asked what he was printing. He said it was nothing important and that he would fix it. His voice was calm, almost too calm. The air felt heavy, like there was more on that desk than he wanted me to see. On the fridge by the wall calendar, I noticed a new sticky note that had not been there before. In small, neat handwriting, it said, Bring forms. I asked what forms. He said it was for some boring errands, nothing I needed to worry about. I told him he was being dramatic and secretive. He said he was simply taking care of things he should have taken care of a long time ago. The way he said it made me feel like I was the mess he needed to clean. The next day, Clara dragged me out to a rooftop bar for after-work drinks with a few co-workers. She said I deserved to blow off steam, that I had too much going on at home. I let her talk because it made me feel like I was suffering instead of causing trouble. The city lights were beautiful, and the air was cool, and the music was loud enough that I could pretend there were no bills, no child bedtime, no quiet husband. We were halfway through our second round when Clara brought up the coffee fights again. She asked if my husband was still policing my cups. I said he was behaving, but only because he knew he was outnumbered. Somebody asked what that meant, so I told the whole table that Noah did not like me having male friends, that he had strong feelings about me having coffee alone with a man. I left out the part where the messages between me and Callum were no longer innocent. People laughed and shook their heads. Clara lifted her glass and said we should toast to women who drink whatever they want, with whoever they want. Everyone cheered, and I felt warm and powerful. I said, respect follows results, and I had results, and they loved that line. At some point, Clara pulled out her phone and made a small video of me and Callum standing close at the railing, city lights behind us. He leaned in to say something in my ear. I smiled in a way I would never smile at Noah in public. She posted a short clip of us clinking glasses and added a caption about work wife and design crush. I saw the notification pop up on my screen, but I did not stop her. I told myself it was just playful, just harmless, just us being modern. Later, on the ride home, my phone buzzed with likes and comments. People joked in the thread about my coffee boyfriend. I saw that Clara had tagged me in the post, and under it, lost in the flood of laughing faces and heart emojis, there was a small thumbs-up reaction from Noah, with no comment at all. The weekend after the rooftop bar, we took Mia to the park because the weather was too good to ignore. She ran straight to the swings, small legs pumping, hair flying, while I scrolled my phone on the bench. Noah pushed her gently, counting under his breath, and for a moment it looked like we were just a normal family. Then my screen lit up with an incoming video call from Callum. I hesitated for half a second and then answered, angling the phone so he could see the bright sky behind me. He asked where I was. I said we were at the park and that I was trying not to die from boredom. He laughed and said he wished he could be there with us, that parks were great for sketching and people watching. He asked if Noah was all worked up about coffee again. I said he was still dramatic about it and that he did not like us talking so much. I made a little joke about being monitored, and Callum shook his head and sighed like it honestly annoyed him on my behalf. It felt good, and I tilted the phone just enough that he could see Mia waving in the background, but not enough that he had to say hello to Noah. When I hung up, Noah asked who it was. I said it was just Callum checking in because he cared about my stress. Noah said he heard the part about him being dramatic. He said it in a level voice that made my skin prickle more than if he had shouted. He said the whole thing with Callum did not feel right to him, that it felt like I was building something new instead of fixing what we had. I said it was just coffee and calls, nothing serious, and that he was the one making it into a big story. He went quiet, took out his phone, and started taking photos of Mia on the swing. At one point, he turned slightly and took a picture of the coffee shop across the street too, quick and smooth like he was just testing the camera. I noticed, but I told myself he was being paranoid and maybe planning some weird art project. That night, we had plans to go to a big dinner at a family-style restaurant with friends and my sister. I got ready in the bedroom, checking my reflection, making sure I looked like someone who was wanted. On the way out, I saw Noah's phone on the nightstand light up with a reminder. Downtown, 11:05 a.m. There was no detail, just the time and location. I asked what he had there. He said he had some personal errands to run and that it did not involve me. He said it calmly, but there was a weight to it I did not like. I told him secrets were not healthy. He said he was just doing what he needed to do. The restaurant was loud and warm, big tables, kids running around, plates clattering. Harper arrived loud and laughing, and Clara came too, sliding into the seat beside me. Noah sat across from me, next to the kids, his shoulders slightly hunched, like he was bracing for something. After drinks arrived, Clara brought up the rooftop video and said a lot of people at work thought it was hilarious. She repeated the phrase work wife and design crush with a grin. Everyone looked at me, waiting for the story, and I felt the familiar rush of being the center. I told them Noah had a problem with me having coffee with Callum, that he thought it was somehow wrong. I said he got jealous over cups and tables, that he wanted me to give up harmless time with a friend just to make him feel big. Harper shook her head and said that sounded like insecure husband energy. I smiled and did not correct her, even though Noah had never actually told me what to do, only how he felt. I said he would probably prefer if I stayed home in silence instead of having conversations with other men. People laughed, and I rode the wave of it like I always did. Noah put his fork down and looked around the table. He said, in a steady voice, that he had never banned me from going anywhere, only told me that my choices made him feel disrespected. He said he was tired of being turned into a cartoon villain when he had only asked for basic loyalty. I rolled my eyes and told everyone he loved the word loyalty more than he loved fun. I felt bold and clever with my small lines. Someone at the far end of the table snorted and said he should just relax. It was only coffee. Something in Noah shifted then. He straightened, and his face went very calm. He said that if I believed there was nothing wrong with acting single, with hiding messages, with making jokes about him in public, then I should be honest and say I did not want a marriage anymore. I snapped back that it was not that deep, that I just wanted coffee and freedom. He looked at me for a long second. Then he said that if there was nothing wrong with me acting like I did not have a husband, then there was also nothing wrong with him acting like he did not have a wife. He added that there was nothing wrong with him living somewhere else if this was how things were going to be, even if that meant starting over in a small place or even, as he put it, on the street with a cheap mattress and some boxes. The table went very quiet at that line. I could feel eyes on us from nearby seats. I said he was threatening to make me homeless over coffee, and I laughed like it was a crazy joke, inviting everyone around us to take my side. Harper told him he was overreacting and that no one gets divorced over cups of coffee. Clara raised her brows and took a slow sip, clearly enjoying the drama. Under the table, my phone buzzed with a message from Callum asking how dinner was going. Noah did not raise his voice. He said he was just saying what was real, that every choice had a result, and that he was not going to keep living like this. He pushed his plate away, not finished, and folded his napkin with careful hands. I saw his jaw tight, but his eyes were clear. For a moment I felt something close to fear, but I pushed it down and told myself he was bluffing like always. Near the end of the table I saw Clara lift her phone, her face half amused, half amazed. A bright flash from her camera jumped across the plates as Noah finished his sentence about living somewhere else, and a second later my phone buzzed again as the new video landed in the Friends group chat. The video from the restaurant spread faster than I expected. By the next day, even the woman who works at the supermarket had seen it. I found that out when I went to buy milk and cereal after work, pretending everything was normal. I was standing in the checkout line when she gave me a strange smile. She said she saw a funny clip of me online where my husband talked about living on the street. She asked if we were doing one of those prank challenges. I laughed and said it was just a joke, just him being dramatic over coffee with a friend. Her smile faded a little, and she said it did not sound like a joke to her. I paid quickly and told myself she was just old-fashioned. On the way home, I checked my phone. The group chat was still busy. People sent laughing emojis and wrote that Noah needed to chill and that I should just live my best life. It felt like a warm blanket of approval, and I wrapped it around myself even tighter. If that many people agreed with me, I could not be that wrong. At home, the air felt cooler. Two mugs sat on separate parts of the counter again, far apart like they were not allowed to touch. His by the window, mine near the sink. It bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Noah was in the guest room with the door half closed. I heard the soft clack of keys and a quiet beep, like a file finishing a download. When I passed by, I glimpsed his laptop screen for a second. A small pop-up in the corner said, "File uploaded successfully," before he clicked it away. That night, I went to the gym with Harper. I wanted noise, mirrors, and music so loud that I could not hear my own thoughts. In the locker room, she asked how dinner had gone in detail. I told her Noah had basically threatened to leave me homeless because I drank coffee with another man. I made my face look wounded, like I was the one who needed protection. She swore under her breath and said he was a control freak. She said I should start planning my escape before he made good on his threat. I did not correct her. I let her believe he was waving the money over my head like a stick. I did not mention that he had talked more about respect than about cash. Another woman at the far bench was tying her shoes. She looked up sharply when I said, "Homeless." Our eyes met for a second, and I saw something like judgment there. She asked if maybe there was more to the story, something we were not saying. Harper snapped that people did not need to hear his side to know controlling behavior. I stayed quiet and pretended to be busy with my locker, but the woman's look stayed in my mind. A few days later, we went to see Noah's mother, Elaine. He said she wanted to spend time with Mia, and I did not want to look like I was hiding. Her living room was always too neat, like a showroom, and sitting there made me feel like a child again. Mia ran off to play with some old toys in the corner, and I sat on the stiff sofa next to Noah, scrolling on my phone. Elaine brought tea and placed it carefully on the table. She asked how work was. I said it was busy as always. She asked how things at home were. I said fine, with the same light tone I used at the office. She looked at Noah, not at me, and asked him if that was true. He said things were changing and that he was trying to handle it in a calm way. I felt my jaw clench at his choice of words. Elaine turned back to me and said she needed to ask me something directly. She asked if there was anything more than coffee going on with this man from the shop. Her eyes were steady, not angry, just very clear. I said it was none of her business who I had coffee with, that I was a grown woman and not her patient in a hospital bed. I said Noah was overreacting and making her worry for no reason. She folded her hands and told me she had been a nurse for a long time, and she knew when people were hiding symptoms. She said she could live with a daughter-in-law who was loud or messy. She said what she could not live with was seeing her son mocked in public. She mentioned the video from the restaurant. She said it hurt her to watch him sit there while everyone laughed at his pain. I said he chose to say those things in public, that it was not my fault people were on my side. She shook her head and said respect was not optional in a marriage. Then she gave something like an ultimatum. She said if I wanted this family, I had to stop humiliating her son and make clear choices. She said if I kept going like this, she would not stand in Noah's way if he decided to change his life. The words "stand in his way" stuck with me. I did not answer. I just picked up my phone and pretended to read a message. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw an unsealed envelope peeking from Noah's bag by the chair, the top of some printed pages just visible. He noticed my glance and slid the bag closed with his foot. Later that week, in the school pickup line, the cars were nose to tail, stretching around the block. I saw Noah's car a few spots ahead, engine running, parked facing the exit. He wore his headphones and spoke into his phone, voice low, profile steady. I could not hear the words, but I saw his mouth move in that careful way he had when he wanted to be precise. Then he tapped the screen, and the call ended. When I walked up to say hello, I caught a glimpse of his messages before the screen went dark. At the top, there was a thread titled simply, "Follow Up." Below it, a recent call log with private and a long duration. Mia came out of the building with her backpack swinging and climbed into our car. She chatted about art class for a bit, then fell quiet. She stared at the traffic ahead and asked, in a small voice, why Daddy was sleeping in the other room now. I said he was just tired and needed space. She asked if he was still mad about the man from the coffee shop. I asked who told her that. She said she heard Grandma talking on the phone. Then she looked straight at me and said that if coffee was nothing, she did not understand why everyone seemed so sad. I started waking up in the middle of the night and hearing things from the guest room. Soft clicks, drawers closing, the slow whir of the laptop fan. The bed beside me stayed empty and cool, and the space where Noah used to sleep felt like a border, not just a gap. One night I got tired of lying there wondering what he was doing, so I got up and went down the hall. The guest room door was closed but not fully latched. A thin line of light cut across the carpet. I heard a quiet hum and the faint scratch of a pen. I told myself I had a right to know what was going on in my own home, that a wife could not be kept in the dark like this, especially when he was the one acting strange. So I pushed the door open. Noah was at the desk with his back to me, wearing headphones like he wanted to block out the whole world. On the screen I saw a clean file tree, nothing messy, just neat folders called Archive A and Archive B. Inside them, from what I could see in that moment, were subfolders with dates instead of names. He clicked quickly, like he did not want to give me time to read. He turned, slipped the headphones down to his neck and asked if I could not sleep. I said I could not sleep because my husband was living in another room and was whispering with his computer at night. He sighed and said he was just organizing things. I asked what things. He said, household things, and his eyes flicked to a folder on the shelf. There was a thin binder labeled Utilities, but it was thicker than any stack of bills we ever had. I flipped it open and found only blank plastic sleeves and dividers, waiting for something. He reached over gently, closed it, and said he would sort it all out. His voice was calm, but the empty sleeves made my stomach twist. The next day, when he left for work early, I went back into the guest room. I opened the lower drawer of the desk, the one that sometimes clicked when he closed it. Inside, there were binders arranged in a neat line, labeled Home, Auto, Bank in his tidy handwriting. They all looked too new. There was also a folder with taxes written on it, and underneath the folder, taped to the wood, was a small USB stick with a date written across the label. I stared at it and felt offended, like the tiny plastic thing was proof he trusted the stick more than he trusted me. My first instinct was to pull it off and plug it in, to see what he had collected there, but I stopped myself. If I removed it, he would know I had been digging. I told myself that if he was allowed to hoard little secrets, I was allowed to have my coffee and messages and late replies. I closed the drawer, harder than I meant to, and the click echoed in the empty room. That evening I waited for him in the living room. I wanted a real fight, something big and loud that would release the pressure in my chest. When he came in, he took off his shoes carefully and greeted Mia first. He asked about her day, helped her with her homework at the table, and acted like nothing between us was broken. I watched from the doorway and felt both jealous and guilty, but I chose the jealous part. When she went to brush her teeth, I stepped into the kitchen and asked why he was hiding flash drives and binders and secret late-night meetings. He dried his hands on a dish towel and said he was not hiding anything, just putting things in order. He said he did not want to argue in front of Mia. I told him he was emotionally abusing me with his silence, that ignoring me was worse than any shouting. I said he made me feel like a criminal in my own home. He looked tired and said he could not make me feel anything, that my feelings were my own. He added that I had made my choices and he was now making his. The neighbours got their show a couple of days later. I caught him coming up the apartment stairwell with a bag of groceries, and the anger that had been simmering all week boiled over. I demanded to know if he was planning to move out, if he was packing some secret place already. I pointed out how his car was always parked facing the street now, ready to go. He set the bag down, very slowly, and asked me to lower my voice. Behind one door I heard a latch click, the sound of someone listening from the other side. I told him he was trying to scare me, that his talk about living on the street with a mattress was emotional blackmail. I said he was punishing me for needing friends and attention. He shook his head and said he was not trying to scare me. He was trying to protect himself and Mia from more humiliation. He said again that he was not going to keep living the way we had been living. I said fine, then go and see if anyone else would put up with his boring rules. He just picked up the bag and walked past me into the apartment without another word. That night, I overheard another call through the thin guest room wall. His voice was low but clear. He said he understood the process. He said he had messages, photos, and public posts saved. He said he would not confront me directly and that he wanted to do everything correctly. I pressed my ear to the wall, breath held. When the floor creaked, he ended the call. A moment later, I heard the hum of the shredder in the next room, that steady, final sound. In the morning, his phone alarm went off on the dresser. The label on the screen said, "Paper drop, 8:15 a.m. He stopped it with a thumb and slid the phone into his pocket before I could say anything. Later, while he was in the shower, another alert popped up, this time a silent calendar notification on the nightstand. City Centre, 10:45 a.m. I stared at the words and felt a chill, like I was standing outside my own life watching a storm roll in. When he came back into the bedroom, I asked where he was going, what paper he was dropping, and what City Centre meant. He buttoned his shirt calmly and said he had a few meetings to take care of, some personal things he should have handled a long time ago. I said I was his wife, and I had a right to know what he was doing. He met my eyes and said very quietly that I had known exactly what he was doing for months and that every joke, every coffee, every story had been part of my choice. I followed him to the hallway, angry, demanding detail. I told him he was cowardly for not just saying if he wanted a divorce. I said he did not have the guts to actually leave me, that he would just mope and act holy while I took the heat. He picked up his keys from the hook, the metal clinking. He said he was done shouting into a wall, that arguing with me was like arguing with a mirror that only showed its good side. Then he looked straight at me and said he was going to handle everything properly now, and that I would get all my answers soon enough. My lunch break was almost over when Clara suggested we go down early so we could grab coffee before the line got long in the lobby. I said sure, because of course it always comes back to coffee. The office tower lobby was busy and loud with people crossing in every direction, heels on marble, doors opening and closing. We were almost at the cafe when a man in a plain suit stepped in front of me and said my full name in a clear voice. I said yes, confused, and he handed me a thick envelope and said it related to a family law matter and that I had been served. For a moment I actually laughed, waiting for someone to shout that it was a prank. But then I saw Noah's name at the top of the first page, and the words petition for dissolution, and temporary exclusive possession of the marital residence, and a weekday custody schedule with Mia's name spelled out. Through the glass doors, I saw Noah standing by security, watching only long enough to see the envelope in my hand before he turned toward the parking garage without looking back.